I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us, an expert, an uber expert on gold and on silver. We're going to be talking some about gold, but more on silver today because, as my guest says, this is their kryptonite, silver. And I'm talking about GATA, the Gold Antitrust Action Committee's chairman, Bill Murphy. Bill Murphy, thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Great to be back, Greg. Thank you.
And before we get into this, I would like to bring up the fact that Deutsche Bank, a primary dealer of treasuries, was manipulating the gold and the silver market. So all the time, I mean, if that's not confirmation, that there's no confirmation out there. That's the confirmation total. I mean, you were confirmed a long time ago that you weren't crazy. But a lot of people said that, oh, GATA, they're a bunch of conspiracy theorists. They're crazy and they're not doing that. Well, we find out that not only is Deutsche Bank do it, they finger HSBC, another primary dealer, Bank of Nova Scotia, another primary dealer. Do you think that's just only 3 primary dealers doing this or many more? But anyway, what I wanted to say is you can take a bow on your conspiracy fact about the manipulation of the markets now. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's great to see in a way because we've been at this now for 18 years, Greg. But the important thing for people to realize, that's just the tip of the iceberg. The real problem is here in the United States and what the bullion banks led by J.P. Morgan are doing and the U.S. government and the big overall picture. But it's good to get that out there because it'll let people know that where to look for and what's going on in the gold and silver markets. Because regardless of anything else, the most important factor about gold and silver is what this gold cartel, which is the bullion banks and central banks, U.S. government, and so on, what they can get away with and what they can't. There's so many things that are important to these markets, but at the end of the day, it's how they're able to be taken on and what they're able to get away with. That is the key factor.
You know Ray Dalio, the hedge fund manager. I don't know if he's managing $100-something billion or something, 80 billion, 100 billion, somewhere like that. I mean, I a lot of money. And you know him personally, and he too is along with Jeff Gundlach and Bill Gross and Carl Icahn and everybody else they are all liking gold, and to me that tells me that's a fear trade, a total fear trade. What do you think about your friend Ray Dalio also liking gold with these guys?
Well, Ray, as everybody knows, in the investment world, is as smart as they come. I had the privilege of being there when he first started Bridgewater Associates, and we became good friends and did a lot of work for him and went to Rio together. And thinking about it today with the Olympics going on down there, and the fact that he's come out publicly and stated his position on that is a big deal. And both Ray and some of these other big names you mentioned, they're in there for a good reason. They see what's coming, and again, they're as smart as they come. So it's wise for people to pay attention to what guys like Ray are doing.
And in the big picture, what do they see coming? Frame it for us. Can you tell me what's freaking them out? Because they don't really say why. They don't really say why they're taking this position. They just say kind of things like, well, the market's shaky and the things aren't look good. But what do they actually see coming?
Well, there's a lot of things really out there. I suppose one of the most glaring ones is these negative interest rates or low interest rates that just keep staying down there. And supposedly things are really good. I mean, look at our Dow at all-time high areas and so on. And yet something is really wrong. And of course, this fits into the GATA shtick about the whole thing, that there's a lot of quantitative easing and propping up of the markets, and it's on very shaky ground, and the plug could be pulled at any time, and they can see what's coming. And again, with interest rates where they are and with debt growing all over the place, I mean, the reasons to be in gold are off the charts. And I'm sure, they won't talk about it, but they must know what GATA knows about the suppression of the gold and silver prices and what's coming down the road for them. And so they want to be on board.
And when you take a look at the biggest the biggest things that tip you off is the game going to be ending soon? And if so, what's the biggest thing that tips you off that says, okay, we're getting into we've turned the last corner, we can see the finish line here? What are you seeing that is a tip off that things are getting to the end of the thing? You wrote me a research note and said it's pound the table time. What do you mean by that? It's pound the table time.
Well, for me, again, I mentioned the word kryptonite. The key is what silver is doing. And it's an extraordinary situation right now. And started to look at it when the price was around 16, and got some information from a good European source that some big money was being moved in the physical market. And it seems to me that this year that silver is in play, and it's an extraordinary situation. That early in the year, it was the worst acting market I've ever seen in 40 years of watching these markets. I mean, it would go up 40 cents, down 40 cents. It would act dysfunctionally. It would jerk here and there. And then on January 28th, the London fix in silver market was trading above 14. They dropped the fix to 13.58 out of nowhere, went right back above 14. That was the bottom of the market. And silver has been moving up ever since. And it appears to me, based on what the open interest is doing, which is going to an all-time high. Even with silver, it's just at 20. It's gone up to recently to 225,000 contracts. When the price when it's in the 40s years ago, the open interest was 150 or 160,000. And that is this big money taking on the J.P. Morgan crowd and their gain, gradually moving in for what I think is going to be one of the biggest market moves in history, and that's silver going to 50 and then 100. And basically, it's because the supply is drying up. The smartest guys I know in the business, the supply-demand area, Dave Morgan, Eric Sprott, they haven't been able to tell me, or anyone else, where all the supply is coming from that this Morgan crowd has been feeding the market with. And I think they're hitting the wall with it, and this big money quietly knows what's going on, and they're just moving in. And that's the reason that silver has been trading like it has. And when it gets through, 1850 was the key. That was the completion of a big base. And the next big key is to take out 2050, but the real number is 21. I think if it gets above 21, it's going to start trading chaotically and volatile action on the upside. And it's going to be, the market move is going to be historic in the way it goes when that occurs, if I'm correct. I mean, it doesn't have to happen the next day, but it will be in the months ahead.
And it'll be in the months ahead. So you think the game is close to the end. Will the gold market go down first, or will the silver market go down first? You used the term kryptonite in describing the silver market. Why?
Well, because that's their Achilles heel. In other words, when that goes, the real key to this gold cartel, as we call it, is the suppression of the gold price. But they realized a long time ago they couldn't have a dichotomy between gold and silver. So they got involved in the silver market to make gold look like it should be doing what it is. But the problem is they're running out of physical silver to keep the job done. And I think, if I'm correct, it's such a state, that's the reason they've had to sell in the futures market, paper contracts, to such a degree that the open interest has gone bonkers. And this big money, if I'm correct, and if silver is in play, understands this, and they're just quietly tying up silver supply. And eventually you're going to get a commercial signal failure in silver, which means these so-called commercials, which is a misnomer because they're not commercials. It's the gold cartel trying to keep the silver price down, because they know when they lose control of silver, it gets above 21, let's say, it's going to be the end of their gold price suppression scheme. I mean, it won't happen overnight, but a gradual process, because the price of silver is going to go bonkers, and it's going to show what they've been doing all these years. And I think they finally are reaching the tipping point.
And you think that the silver market will take down the gold market? Once the silver market goes, you can yell timber on the gold market?
Well, it'll take it up, not down. But yeah, I mean, of course, gold's got its own dynamics. It's just that silver is such a small market. And I think that they really, again, they've reached the tipping point. In gold, they've gone here and there and different ways to get physical gold. And I think they're in trouble there, too. There's some signs of that. But silver is the one in which they have the big problem, which, again, the open interest has been the key to understanding that there is a big problem.
And the big problem, the reason why you call it kryptonite, it's kind of funny. You would think that'd be a lot of something if it was kryptonite, but it's kryptonite because there's not a lot of it. Am I hearing this right? Explain that. What's the kryptonite term mean when you talk about silver?
Well, it's relating it to Superman in the sense of that's the death knell to Superman. Being exposed to kryptonite, and this is the gold cartel's kryptonite in the sense that it's what's going to be their death knell, and that's the lack of supply of physical silver to keep the price down. And it's been a gradual process, but you've got silver, every time it gets to 2050, just the other day they almost had a heart attack to take the price back down. But every time it's trading differently these days than it did earlier this year. I mean, at the very beginning and last year and so on. and they're having trouble keeping it down, and we're getting closer and closer to the point where it explodes.
And you're saying that, at 20 something dollars an ounce, they don't want it there. They want it below 20, but they can't push it below 20. Is that what you're telling me?
Exactly. Well, first of all, getting it down to $14 an ounce and 15 the past years is ridiculous. And I think, they've gone past the point when they're able to do it. And again, that's the reason you're seeing the price dynamics. I mean, silver's been trading about 2025 now for 5 weeks, and it's made a couple of attempts to get above 2050, which again, 21's the next key. And it's giving them sort of a nervous breakdown, but they can't keep it down. And I think you're going to see the price explode sometime in the weeks ahead, months ahead, and once it gets going above 21, look out.
That's the key turn. I mean, you also have deep brokerage and Wall Street experience. I mean, if you're friends with Ray Dalio and you helped him start his fund, you're not just a gold guy. I mean, you're a big Wall Street, big financial guy. So you're saying that your line of demarcation. You're saying that, hey, folks, watch the 21, 21.5, 21.20, 21 handle. Once it breaks and holds over 21, Katie bar the door. It's going to be taken off from there.
Yeah, well, 1850 was the first key, and 21 is the next big stop when the volatility starts. And I've had some fun with this because I've had the privilege of being around some legends that taught me how to look for things like this, and we'll see if it's going to pay off or not. But Dan Ritchie, who turned down the chancellorship of Harvard and took over the same role at Denver, and Frank Venerosa, who wrote the Gold Book and saw the big copper play in 1987 and regarding Asian demand when nobody else did. And I'm trying to see if I can put all I learned from these geniuses to work and see if I can be right on the silver move here.
And the silver move, now let's just talk about that, because a lot of people on the site, we talk about gold a lot. I've had Jim Rickards on, I've had all kinds of, Jim Sinclair, very smart. These are also very smart people, especially on gold. But I want to concentrate on the silver price. You're saying that once it hits 21, where do you see silver going? What kind of money are we talking about here in the months, years ahead?
Well, I'm a big Eric Sprott fan, and he's been talking about $100 silver for some time, and I think you're going to see the double top at 50 taken out and go to at least 100, maybe a lot more. And I think most importantly, I think it's going to move up faster than anybody can imagine, and it's going to be one of the most volatile markets in commodity market history, if I'm correct. I may not be, but that's what I think. And it's going to get chaotic, and this kind of action has all been put in play by what this gold cartel and Morgan has done to keep the silver price at artificially low levels for way too long a period. And so when it goes, it's going to be bonkers kind of action.
So what's the best kind of silver for people to buy? People will say, I should buy bars, or I should buy this, or that. I tell people to buy coins, and somebody sends me a video about how there's three. There's a gold dealer, some dealer, has 3 bullion gold coins, and I'm telling people to buy coins just because if it does go bonkers, and we do have a crisis. I mean, if silver's $100 an ounce, and we got other stuff going on in the economy, do we not? I mean, can we talk about that? If silver's $100 an ounce, what else is going on first of all, what kind of silver would you buy? Gold coins, silver coins for normal people?
I think it's very good. It's most importantly what people are comfortable with. You go on with your life and where it's safe so yes, coins are a great way to do it. I know that, and if I may interject this before I forget, I mean, look, in terms of silver moving, look at what a First Majestic stock has done. It's gone from 240 to almost to 19 the other day. And when silver was in its highs in the 40s, it only was at 25. Now, I know the company has really improved itself over the years, but the shares in general, not just that company, have been moving straight up since January, straight up. And they're also predicting a move that is going to be historic, like silver up to 100. So I just wanted to bring that in there because I think it's confirmation as to what's coming.
And so you like coins more than anything else, or do you like bar? I guess for rich people it'd be 100 ounce or kilo bars or whatever, right?
Well, silver is pretty heavy. It's unlike gold, and it's much bulkier. So coins is an easier way to go. And what I stress the most is what people are most comfortable with.
And then I want to come back to what is the because you have this much more experience than gold and silver prices and GATA. I mean, you have a very deep financial experience. What does the world look like if gold tops if silver tops $100 an ounce? What does the world look like?
Well, the irony is it should be just normal. That's the problem. What God has been pointing out is that the gold price, if it had kept pace with inflation, would be double what it is today. And it would have other warning signs, and the free market process could work. What they've done is thwart the free market process. So, in fact, it wouldn't have to be anything wrong if silver, was $100 an ounce or gold was up at 2,500. They have made it that way, and I think what's going to happen is, gold's going to move to some big numbers also. But it wouldn't have to have been this way. They could have let the free market work, but now it's created dysfunctional things out there, which has the likes of the people you mentioned, and like a Ray Dalio moving into gold and some other big names out there because they can see what's going on.
And so you're saying that because they suppressed everything. I mean, they rigged every market. You're saying that the downside for rigging every market is going to be some pretty violent upheavals.
Yes, and I think that there's a lot of people much smarter than I am that are talking about that. I mean, what they've done, interest rates to keep them down here this long. People know that the quote being rigged, and what they've done in other financial markets to keep them elevated. It's creating an unnatural situation. We're supposed to be about free markets, and they've taken that away. And heck, even in the financial arena, how many bullion banks have been fined for rigging them into LIBOR, currency markets, and so on. So the fact that gold and silver have been rigged and kept at artificially low prices shouldn't surprise anybody, really. And I think these big guys you're talking about, they know what's going on. They just don't want to talk about it.
Do you think we could have societal? I've heard people say this. Some of my guests are talking about basically societal breakdown, that when this thing snaps, that the credit's going to be cut off, your smartphone's not going to work, your credit card's not going to work, cash will work, but hardly anybody has cash. You're talking about are you talking about some sort of societal breakdown when this thing hits the fan?
Well, I'm not as dramatic as some of my colleagues. I don't see why it has to get that crazy. It could, of course, and might, but life goes on, and what I try to do is focus on what I'm really comfortable with, and that is the price of gold and silver exploding, because people are just going to become very, very uncomfortable with that sort of thing. Whether it gets the high drama, I will have to see.
And before we go, because you are GATA, what about the price of gold? You're saying that it should be $2,500 an ounce now, no problem.
If I'm also follower James Turk, and I know that if he has related many times, if gold had kept pace with inflation right now, it would be double what it is today. So, yeah, I mean, that would just be normal. I know when we had 4 conferences, and we had one in the Yukon in 2005, and price of gold was $436, and I said back then that my opinion was it would take $3,000 to $5,000 to clear the market. By the time we had our next conference, or 2 conferences later in 2011, in London, the price was at $1,650 on its way to $1,900, and then of course it's been under siege ever since. So I think $3,000 to $5,000 objective for gold is pretty conservative.
You're thinking that it should be higher than double what it is, $2,500. You're saying to clear the market. When you say to clear the market, what does that mean? To clear the market, that the price of gold. What's the real price of gold? Jim Rickards has said he's talking $10,000 gold. Other people have said, well, it could go to $50,000. If the money printing goes crazy, it could go absolutely berserk.
Well, absolutely. Again, I'm more conservative than Jim, who also spoke at our London conference, and that I just think that it's just a guess, but way back when, it seemed to me that would be enough to get the supply-demand forces in line with each other. Now, that could be way too conservative. Nobody knows. But right now, it's just a number. Heck, if you had, you take out 2,000, you'd have a lot of conversation out there about the gold price.
So, okay. So you think it go to 5,000 is what your number is, basically, I guess.
Yeah, 3 to 5, yes.
Just to have some sort of equilibrium. 'Equilibrium.
That's right. That wouldn't be any big deal.
Well, I got to tell you, I just want to close the same way I ended. For years as a reporter, I heard about, and I thought you were right because you laid out all kinds of statistics of why you were right, and so did a lot of other people. Like you brought up Eric Sprott about how much gold is mined, how much silver is mined, where are they getting the supply, and it came from central banks. But a lot of people, a lot of people in the mainstream media, the CNBC folks, people like that, Bloomberg called GATA a bunch of, crazyville conspiracy theorists, and now you're conspiracy fact people, that it's a total fact. But boy, did they have egg on their faces. Took a long time coming, but with this admission by Deutsche Bank, not long ago, that they rigged the markets. I got to tell you, but for you to stay on this for how long? 19 years?
Chris Powell and I started it in GATA in January of 99.
I mean, you guys have been abused by the press.
To put it mildly, yes.
Abused. I saw you guys in 2005 or 6, and I was at CNN, and I think, wow, the business press hates these people. I wasn't even covering business stories at that time. Well, now we know why they hated you. You were right.
Well, Greg, I was on with Ron and Sana in January of 1999, and on CNBC, and that was the last time I've been seen here in the States.
Isn't that something? Wow, they won't even put you on, even after getting the whole manipulation call correct. Oh, I guess then for sure they won't put you on to come on and go nana nana poo poo, stick your head in doo doo. I was right. I mean, that's unbelievable. They won't have you on.
The irony is, the more GATA gets proved right, the less people want to hear from us in the mainstream or conference world and so on. It's sort of bizarre, but that's the way it is. That will change sometime down the road, but sometimes you just got to live with it.
Well, your next vindication is probably going to come with an exploding silver market and an exploding gold market, and you probably are going. Well, you're going to be right. I think you've been right in the past. You should be right in the future. Hey, listen, Bill Murphy, thank you for joining us today. Bill Murphy from GATA, the Gold Antitrust Action Committee that he and Chris Powell founded. Bill Murphy of GATA, thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Thank you, Greg. It's been a pleasure.